I was 24 years old when I heard the words that shattered me. You were never really part of this family anyway, Mia. My stepsister Lauren said it with a smile. Right there in the lawyer's office, surrounded by mahogany furniture and the smell of old leather. My mother had been dead for exactly 7 days. 7 days since cancer took her. 7 days since I held her hand as she whispered she loved me. 7 days since I became an orphan. And now this. Lauren sat across from me in her black Chanel dress, her perfectly manicured nails drumming on the table. My stepfather Richard sat beside her, his face carved from stone. Cold, unreadable. The lawyer, Mr. Harrison, cleared his throat. He was older, maybe 60, with gray hair and kind eyes that kept darting toward me with something like pity. We're here for the reading of Margaret Chen's last will and testament, he said quietly. My mother, Margaret, the woman who raised me alone after my father died when I was 3. The woman who married Richard when I was 15, hoping to give me a family. The woman who worked 2 jobs to put me through college while Lauren got everything handed to her. Let's just get this over with, Richard said, his voice flat. I have a meeting at 3. My hands trembled in my lap. I wore the same black dress I'd worn to the funeral. I hadn't slept in days. My eyes felt like sandpaper. Margaret's estate includes the house in Westchester, valued at $1.2 million, Mr. Harrison began. Her savings accounts, investment portfolio, and personal belongings. Lauren leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. The house goes to... The door opened. A woman walked in, mid-50s expensive suit, carrying a leather briefcase. She looked at me, and something flickered across her face. Recognition. I apologize for the interruption, she said. But before you continue, there's something everyone in this room needs to know about Margaret Chen. My heart stopped. Who was this woman and what did she know about my mother? The woman closed the door behind her with a soft click that seemed to echo through the entire office. Mr. Harrison stood up, confusion written all over his face. I'm sorry, who are you? This is a private will reading. My name is Catherine Mills, she said, setting her briefcase on the table with a deliberate thud. I'm an attorney from Mills & Associates in Manhattan, and I have a court order that gives me the right to be present at this proceeding. She pulled out a folded document and handed it to Mr. Harrison. Richard's face turned red. What the hell is this? Language, Richard, Catherine said coolly, not even looking at him. There's a grieving daughter in the room. I sat frozen, my mind spinning. Who was this woman? How did she know my mother? And why did she look at me like she was about to save my life? Mr. Harrison scanned the document, his eyes widening. This is legitimate. An injunction filed 2 weeks before Mrs. Chen's death. 2 weeks? I whispered. My mother had been in the hospital 2 weeks before she died. Barely conscious, in pain. And she'd filed a legal injunction? Lauren shot up from her chair. This is ridiculous. You can't just barge in here and... Sit down, Lauren, Catherine said, her voice like ice. Something in her tone made Lauren obey. She sank back into her chair, her face pale. Richard stood now, his fists clenched. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but Margaret was my wife. Everything she had becomes mine and my daughter's. That's the law. Actually, Catherine said, turning to face him fully, that's not quite accurate. Not when there's evidence of fraud, coercion, and systematic financial abuse. The room went silent. I couldn't breathe. Fraud? Coercion? What was she talking about? You're insane, Richard hissed. I loved Margaret. I took care of her when she was sick. I paid for her treatments. Did you? Catherine opened her briefcase. Because the medical bills I've reviewed tell a very different story. They tell me that Mia here paid for 70% of her mother's cancer treatments, using student loans and credit cards, while you and Lauren took 2 vacations to Europe. My vision blurred with tears. It was true, all of it. I'd gone into debt trying to save my mother while Richard complained about the cost of everything. How do you know that? I asked, my voice breaking. Catherine looked at me and her expression softened. Because your mother came to me 3 months ago. She hired me to protect you. What else had my mother done to protect me before she died? Richard's mask finally slipped. That manipulative bitch, he snarled, and the venom in his voice made me flinch. She was always paranoid, always thinking I was after her money. Because you were, Catherine said simply. Lauren stood up again, her face twisted with rage. How dare you come in here and attack my father? He loved Margaret. He married her when nobody else wanted her. A single mother with a kid and nothing to offer. The words hit me like a physical blow. Lauren, Mr. Harrison said weakly. Please, no! Lauren turned on me, her pretty face ugly with contempt. You know what? I'm glad we're finally being honest. I've spent 9 years pretending to be your sister, Mia. 9 years of my father pretending to care about you. Do you know how exhausting that was? I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. I'd known they didn't love me, but hearing it said out loud, in this room where my mother's memory still lingered, was devastating. We played the part, Richard said, his voice cold and calculated now. We smiled for Margaret. We included the girl in family photos. We pretended she mattered. Because Margaret had money and I had patience. Catherine's jaw tightened. You're confessing to fraud in front of witnesses and a court reporter. I hadn't even noticed the woman in the corner, fingers flying across a stenograph machine recording every word. Richard laughed. Fraud? I married the woman legally. I was a devoted husband. There's no fraud in being smart enough to know what you're getting into. You never loved her, I whispered, finding my voice finally. You never loved my mother. Love? Lauren scoffed. Please. She was a means to an end. And you? She pointed at me with one perfectly manicured finger. You were just the annoying kid we had to tolerate to get what we deserved. What you deserved? Catherine's voice could have cut glass. Richard straightened his tie, regaining his composure. Margaret lived in my house for 9 years. I supported her. When she got sick, I took care of her. Community property laws are clear. Half of everything is mine, and I'm leaving my half to my daughter. Mia gets nothing. Actually, Mr. Harrison said quietly, looking at the will in front of him, Margaret's will states— I don't care what it states, Richard interrupted. I'll contest it. I'll tie this up in court for years. By the time we're done, there won't be anything left but legal fees. He leaned across the table, his face inches from mine. You're 24, Mia. Broke. In debt. You can't afford to fight me. The cruelty in his eyes told me he'd been waiting years to say this. Mr. Harrison looked down at his papers, saying nothing. The court reporter kept typing, her face carefully neutral. No one was defending me. Look at her, Lauren laughed, a sound like breaking glass. She's about to cry, just like she always does. Playing the victim. Richard sat back down, crossing his arms. Your mother felt guilty. That's all this is. Guilty that she couldn't give you the life Lauren had. Guilty that she got sick and left you with debt. So she probably left you some jewelry or something sentimental in that will. Something to remember her by, Lauren added mockingly. How touching. Catherine started to speak, but Richard held up his hand. Let me make something very clear to everyone in this room, he said, his voice carrying the weight of authority. I'm a managing partner at Henderson and Cross. I have the best lawyers in New York on speed dial. If anyone tries to take what's rightfully mine and my daughter's, I will destroy them. He looked directly at me. Especially you, Mia, you're nobody. You have nobody. Your mother's dead. You have no family, no money, no power. If you try to fight this, I'll bury you in litigation until you're living in a cardboard box. Tears streamed down my face. I couldn't stop them. God, she's pathetic, Lauren said to her father, loud enough for everyone to hear. I can't believe we wasted 9 years on her. It was worth it, Richard replied, not taking his eyes off me. The house alone is worth $1.2 million. Margaret's investment portfolio is worth another $800,000. Her life insurance policy was $500,000. $2.5 million, Lauren breathed, her eyes lighting up. Split between us. That's more than enough for my wedding and the down payment on that penthouse I wanted. You're getting married? I asked stupidly, the words tumbling out. Lauren laughed again. In 3 months. At the plaza. And you're definitely not invited. I don't want any sad little orphans ruining my photos. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat uncomfortably. Perhaps we should Perhaps we should nothing, Richard snapped. Read the will. Give her whatever trinket Margaret left her. Then we're done here. Catherine remained silent, watching everything with dark, calculating eyes. The court reporter's fingers never stopped moving. I felt like I was drowning. The walls of the office seemed to close in. Everyone was watching me break apart, and no one cared. My mother loved me, I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. Of course she did, Richard said with false sympathy. And I'm sure she left you something meaningful. But love doesn't pay bills, Mia. Love doesn't erase debt. I wanted to disappear, to vanish from this room where everyone watched me suffer. I stared at my hands in my lap, trembling, small, helpless. The silence in the room was suffocating. I thought about my mother, how she'd held my hand in the hospital, how she'd smiled even when the pain was unbearable, how she'd whispered, "You're going to be okay, baby." I promise, but I wasn't okay. I was alone in a room full of people who hated me. People who'd pretended to be my family while counting down the days until they could take everything. Can we move this along? Lauren checked her phone. I have a dress fitting at 4. A dress fitting. While I sat here, orphaned and broken, she was worried about wedding dresses. Mr. Harrison looked at me with such pity that it made everything worse. Mia, do you need a moment? We can take a break if— No, Richard interrupted. No breaks. Read the will now. I wanted to speak, to scream, to tell them all how much they'd hurt me. How many nights I'd cried myself to sleep knowing they didn't want me. How hard I'd tried to be good enough, smart enough, quiet enough to deserve their love. But no words came. I was invisible. A ghost in my own life. She's not even going to fight, Lauren observed, tilting her head like I was some curiosity. Look at her just sitting there. No wonder Mom felt sorry for her. Mom. She called my mother Mom, like she had any right to that word. My mother, who'd worked double shifts to pay for Lauren's private school. My mother, who'd missed my college graduation because she was too sick from chemotherapy. My mother, who'd died whispering apologies to me for marrying Richard. I forgive you, Mom, I'd told her. I forgive you for everything, but sitting here now, I didn't know if I forgave her. How could she have brought these people into our lives? How could she have married a man so cruel? Catherine still hadn't moved. She stood by the window, silhouetted against the afternoon light, watching everything with those knowing eyes. Why wasn't she helping me? Why wasn't anyone helping me? Your mother made her choices, Richard said, reading my expression. She chose to marry me. She chose to blend our families. She chose to sign documents that made me her legal husband with legal rights to her estate. His smile was razor sharp. And she chose to die without protecting you. The cruelty of it took my breath away. Lauren laughed. Dad, that's dark. Even for you. It's honest, he replied. Mia needs to understand reality. She's been living in a fantasy where her mother was some kind of saint. But Margaret was just a woman who made mistakes. And her biggest mistake was not preparing her daughter for the real world. I felt something break inside me. Something that had been holding me together since the funeral. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was nothing. Maybe I'd always been nothing. Catherine moved from the window. That's enough, she said quietly, but her voice cut through the room like a blade. Richard waved her off. You've heard everything you need to hear. You can leave now. I'm not going anywhere. Catherine walked to the table and stood directly behind my chair. I could feel her presence, solid and unwavering. And you're going to want to hear what I have to say. I don't give a damn what you have to say, Richard spat. Catherine smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. 3 months ago, Margaret Chen came to my office. She was thin, pale, and she knew she was dying. Do you know what she told me? No one answered. She said, I need to protect my daughter from the monster I married. Richard's face went white. She brought me documents, Catherine continued, pulling folders from her briefcase. Bank statements showing money transferred from her personal accounts to yours, Richard. Statements she never authorized. She brought me emails between you and Lauren, discussing how much longer you'd have to play house before Margaret died. Lauren stood up so fast her chair fell backward. That's a lie, is it? Catherine opened a folder and began reading. Email from Lauren to Richard dated 6 months ago. How much longer do we have to pretend Dad? The doctor said she has less than a year. I'm so tired of acting like I care about her sad little daughter. My stomach turned. Email from Richard to Lauren dated 8 months ago. Be patient. Once Margaret's gone, everything becomes ours. The girl is too weak to fight. She'll accept whatever scraps we throw her and disappear. Where did you get those? Richard roared, slamming his fist on the table. From Margaret's laptop, Catherine said calmly. The one she gave me before she died. The one where she'd been forwarding herself every suspicious email you two sent for the past 2 years. Mr. Harrison's mouth hung open. The court reporter's fingers flew even faster. I couldn't process what I was hearing. My mother had known. She'd known everything. This is illegal, Lauren shrieked. You can't use private emails in court. Actually, I can, Catherine replied. When those emails provide evidence of elder abuse, financial exploitation, and conspiracy to defraud. Your father had access to Margaret's email account. She had every legal right to monitor communications that involved her own finances. Richard's face had gone from white to purple. You're making this up. All of it. Am I? Catherine pulled out another document. This is a forensic accounting report. It shows that over the 9 years of your marriage, you systematically drained $270,000 from Margaret's accounts. Small transfers. $5,000 here. $10,000 there. Always just under the threshold that would trigger automatic review. She laid the report on the table. Margaret noticed. 6 months before her diagnosis, she started keeping records. I thought I might be sick. $270,000. While I'd been taking out student loans and working 2 jobs. My mother knew, I whispered. She knew all this time? Catherine turned to me and her expression softened. She knew. And she spent the last 3 months of her life making sure you'd be protected. Making sure they couldn't take anything more from you. What else had my mother planned before she died? Richard stood up, his face twisted with rage. I don't care what lies you've fabricated. I'm her widower. I have rights. You have nothing, Catherine said coldly. Lauren grabbed her father's arm. Dad, maybe we should get our lawyer. Shut up, Lauren, he snapped, shaking her off. Mr. Harrison finally found his voice. If there's evidence of financial abuse, the will could be contested on different grounds entirely. There's more than evidence, Catherine said. There's a signed affidavit from Margaret, notarized and witnessed, detailing every instance of emotional and financial abuse. Every threat Richard made, every cruel thing Lauren said when Margaret was too weak to defend her daughter. I remembered nights when my mother cried in her room, times when Richard's voice carried through the walls, cold and demanding. Moments when Lauren made comments that seemed innocent but cut like knives. My mother had heard everything, recorded everything. She also filed for divorce, Catherine added, dropping the bomb casually. What? Richard and Lauren said in unison. 2 months before she died. She filed for divorce. It was never finalized because she passed away, but the filing exists. Which means, legally, your marriage was contested at the time of her death. Richard lunged across the table toward Catherine. You're destroying my life. Mr. Harrison jumped up. Richard, sit down, now. This is a setup, Richard shouted. That woman poisoned Margaret against me. Filled her head with lies when she was vulnerable. The only poison in Margaret's life, Catherine said, not backing away from his rage, was you. Lauren was crying now, mascara running down her face. We took care of her. We were there. You were vultures, Catherine replied, waiting for her to die so you could pick her corpse clean. The truth had finally been spoken, and there was no taking it back. Caracteres neste bloco. 1899 tentar novamente. For next bloco 8. Revelação inesperada. Catherine opened one final folder. There's something else Margaret discovered, she said, her voice dropping low. Something that changes everything. Richard froze. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. What are you talking about? He whispered. Richard Henderson, Catherine read from a document, previously known as Richard Castellano. Married to Patricia Castellano from 1998 to 2005, divorced in Nevada. Lauren's face went pale. What? Except the divorce was never finalized, Catherine continued. Patricia is still alive, still legally married to your father, which means his marriage to Margaret was invalid. He's a bigamist. The room erupted. That's impossible, Richard shouted. Patricia signed an affidavit confirming it, Catherine said calmly. She's willing to testify. Margaret found her 2 months before she died. Hired a private investigator who tracked her down in Las Vegas. Mr. Harrison sank into his chair. If the marriage wasn't legal, then Richard has no claim to anything, Catherine finished. No spousal rights, no inheritance, nothing. I couldn't breathe. My mother had done this, had uncovered this secret, had protected me from beyond the grave. Lauren turned on her father. You told me Mom died. You said she died in a car accident. She was dead to me, Richard stammered. But she wasn't actually dead, Lauren screamed. Which means you committed fraud. Which means everything we planned. Shut up. Richard grabbed her arm hard enough to leave marks. Catherine pulled out her phone. I have security on speed dial. Touch her again and you'll be in handcuffs. Richard released Lauren, his face crumbling. Please, I can explain. Margaret knew. We talked about it. She understood. She understood you were a liar, I said, finding my voice finally. She understood you married her for money while you already had a wife. Everything they'd built on lies was collapsing, and I watched it fall. Caracteres neste bloco, 1.899 tentar novamente. For next bloco 9, Justiça Emocional Patrimonial. Mr. Harrison adjusted his glasses with shaking hands. Given these revelations, I believe we should proceed with Margaret's will as written. Please, Richard begged, and the sound of his desperation was almost satisfying. I have nothing. Everything is in Margaret's name. The house, the accounts, which was your plan all along, Catherine said. Except Margaret figured it out. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat and began reading. I, Margaret Chen, being of sound mind, leave my entire estate to my daughter, Mia Chen. The house in Westchester, all bank accounts, investments, and personal property. My heart stopped. Furthermore, Mr. Harrison continued, I leave nothing to Richard Henderson, as our marriage was fraudulent. I leave nothing to Lauren Henderson, as she showed me nothing but cruelty disguised as tolerance. Lauren sobbed into her hands. Richard and Lauren have 30 days to vacate the Westchester property, Mr. Harrison finished. All belongings not removed will be donated. Catherine placed a hand on my shoulder. Your mother also left you $300,000 in a separate account Richard never knew about. Money she'd been hiding for years to protect you. I started crying, not from sadness, but from overwhelming love for a mother who'd fought for me until her last breath. This isn't over, Richard said weakly. I'll appeal. You'll go to prison if you try, Catherine interrupted. Bigamy is a felony. Financial elder abuse is a felony. I have enough evidence to bury you. Richard stood defeated and walked toward the door. Lauren followed, her designer dress wrinkled, her face destroyed. At the door, Richard turned back. She won, he said bitterly, looking at me. Your mother won. No, I replied, my voice steady for the first time. I won because she loved me enough to fight. Justice had finally been served. And it tasted like freedom. The door closed behind them, and the silence that followed felt different. Lighter. Clean. Catherine sat down beside me. Your mother recorded a video message for you. She asked me to play it after the reading. She pulled out a tablet and pressed play. My mother's face appeared. Thin, tired, but smiling. Hi, baby. If you're watching this, I'm gone. And I'm so sorry I had to leave you. Tears blurred my vision. I'm sorry I brought Richard into our lives. I'm sorry I didn't see who he really was until it was too late. But I'm not sorry for the time I had with you. You are the best thing I ever did, Mia. The only thing that matters. She paused, coughing. I spent my last months making sure you'd be protected, making sure they couldn't hurt you anymore. You're stronger than you know, baby. You're going to do amazing things. And I'll be watching, always. The video ended. I sat there sobbing, while Catherine quietly packed her briefcase. Mr. Harrison gave me privacy, stepping out of the office. When I finally caught my breath, Catherine handed me her card. Your mother paid me through the end of the year. If you need anything, legal advice, help managing the estate, anything, call me. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you for helping her. For helping me, Catherine smiled. Your mother was a warrior. She loved you fiercely. Don't ever forget that. I walked out of that office into the late afternoon sun. The city stretched before me, full of possibilities I'd never imagined. I had a home. I had money. I had a future. But more than that, I had proof that I was loved. Really, truly loved. Richard and Lauren thought they'd won by being cruel. But my mother had taught me the greatest lesson of all. Love doesn't make you weak. It makes you unstoppable.